Chances are Joe Rogan agrees with Bernie Sanders on many more issues than he agrees with me on. However, what we're going to see today is Joe Rogan basically blowing up the whole purpose of Bernie Sanders' existence. But before we get these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
There is something else that's going on in this. While all this is going on, while all this technology is throwing people out on the street, something else is happening. The people who own that technology and the corporations who utilize that technology are becoming phenomenally richer, right?
Exactly.
All right. And that is the issue, which gets back to things like tax reform, like making sure that in America we do not have the massive levels of income and wealth inequality that we currently have.
But the problem with that is the taxes go to what? An incompetent, corrupt government?
This is the way I see it.
I'm not, by the way, I'm not advocating for making it privatized, making all of government privatized. I'm just talking about the realities of corruption in our current government system.
Let's talk about what we mean by corruption. I do not believe, by the way, because I know these guys, some of them are corrupt.
Let's say incompetent and waste.
Okay. All right, let's
we can take fraud out of the equation and just talk about incompetency and waste.
Is there waste? You got it. All right, but let me back it up again.
Okay. Look, I'd be more than willing to pay more taxes if we lived in a better country. I'd be like, this would be great. If I felt like if I pay more taxes,
your job is,
everybody's surviving, everybody's doing well, that's great.
All right. Then that is the issue of how you revitalize American democracy. I'm not going to argue with you that the system today is pretty bad. All right, I live it. I'm going there today. And
ironically, it's bad because there's no competition, right? It's corrupt, but it's not a free market. Like the government itself has a monopoly on governing. And when they're completely corrupt and when they're making insane amounts of money through taxes and they're not accountable.
No, all right, no, I don't know. Because I think it ties into everything else that we're talking about. You know why I believe in democracy and why I believe among what we didn't talk about is we brought in some money to Vermont and elsewhere, I think, for helping workers own their own companies.
Right.
Are you familiar with that concept?
Yes.
And I meet every year with in Vermont. We're doing pretty well. And when workers own their own companies, you talk about a sense of purpose. They are more than just a cog in the machine.
Yes.
They make decisions and they feel good about it. Absenteeism is less, productivity is higher because they have a real stake in the thing.
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that I do, what my campaigns for president were about, what I'm doing right now, we're doing what we call a fighting oligarchy tour. That's why I'm in Texas, is to try to say to people out there who are mostly working class people, you got to get involved. I know it's hard. People are working long hours. You got to get involved in the political process. You got to make demands on government that it serves you, not just the very wealthy. So to answer your question, I think one of the goals, not only we've talked about how you deal with the exploding technology and how people gain purpose. The other thing is I want people to be able to take control over their own government. We can argue what the government should or should not do, but I don't think we can allow a handful of people with incredible wealth to control both parties.
Well, it's dangerous.
It is.
It's very dangerous, and I mean, no one the founding fathers of this country never saw that coming.
That's right.
They made this incredible system of checks and balances.
You got it.
But who could have ever possibly saw that coming?
So I think as a nation, we should be talking about moving toward allowing workers more power. But getting back to government itself, the corruption is, in my view, that government is very far removed from the needs of ordinary people because it is largely controlled by billionaires in both political parties who have their agenda.
Yes.
All right. And what I worry about Trump is, you're right. I read, it is astounding back in the 1780s when these guys wrote the Constitution, how perceptive they were.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they said
their understanding of human desires and the power and all the corruption.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing.
And they wrote that having just fought a war and won a war against the most powerful despot on earth, the King of England, right?
Right.
And I think in the back of their minds was saying, all right, we just beat the King of England, absolute power. How do you create a new country which has checks and balance so that nobody ever has that power
Right.
again.
So it sounds to me like Bernie Sanders is actually making the case for smaller government, right? The founders had the forethought to say, oh, we just came out of this war where the government, of course, was oppressing the people. And as Joe Rogan points out, yeah, they actually see all these separations of powers. We don't want to have this huge government control, okay? And that, of course, is there for a reason. But Bernie Sanders, politically, being a democratic socialist, wants the government to actually have more power. He wants them to control healthcare. He wants them to control more means of production to, of course, help the populace, which of course will never happen when you look at the history of government. What made the founding fathers brilliant is that they were students of history, and they saw that every single time a democracy rose, it always fell because eventually the governments got bloated and corrupt. The spending exceeded income, and then of course you have the inevitable collapse. Okay, but Bernie Sanders isn't going to put one and one together and say, a smaller government would actually fix a heck of a lot of these problems. Okay, because as Joe Rogan rightly points out, if you raise up all of these taxes, where is the money actually going to? It's going right back to that corrupt government we're all complaining about. Okay, what are they going to do with our tax dollars? If they have more, they're just going to spend more on useless projects, as Doge just uncovered, right? All of these little pet NGOs out there getting millions of dollars that come out of our wallets directly, and of course fund weird things like Ugandan trans surgeries or something like that. And by the way, I don't love these huge giant corporations having this much power and control. I do think they're very dangerous. And over the last 50 years in this country, we have seen, of course, the pay gap increase between the CEOs and the workers. This is something that used to not exist, right? Workers used to be more appreciated. But if you really want to fix corruption in our government, you have to focus on campaign finance reform, right? Take away the power of these big corporations, right? Allow no businesses, no entities, no unions to contribute to any campaign, all right? It should all just be individual donations with a maximum of $5,000. That way you don't have the billionaires buying the elections, and you don't have the big mega corporations having undue influence over our government officials. But all of that being set aside, Bernie Sanders is one of these people that actually does see legitimate problems, but the only error he has is in his reasoning that government is going to be the answer, when as a matter of fact, it will be a million times worse. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me. Do you like t-shirts? Of course you do. And now you can support the channel by buying an Angry Teacher t-shirt designed by me, Angry Teacher. So if you like America, if you like freedom, if you like liberty, then go ahead and click the link in the description, where all designs, of course, are 100% mother approved. So enjoy yourself and find something you like today.